Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get singles for all your Force of Will and other trading card games, as well as these amazing patrons. Thank you for your support. Class is in session. Hey there, Rulers! Welcome back after a long week of Force of Will. We know you have some assignments left, so if you need a little extra help, you've come to the right place. It's Office Hours, your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast, featuring myself, as always, Jeremy Franklin, and I am joined by the beautiful Mike Rance.
Hello, friends.
The sophisticated Paul Rance.
Oh man,
Paul!
Whoa.
Oh my gosh! Hold on, I'm gonna play the intro again. Beep.
I do.
The sophisticated Paul Reisman. And the very cute Brandon Franklin.
There we go.
Let's all just trade last names.
I'm really glad that you would let us join you on your podcast, Jeremy Bremont.
Yeah,
that was very kind of you.
Wait, Paul, are you ordained? Can you marry them, real quick?
Yes, and apparently I can marry us too. That's fine.
Oh, sick!
Our wedding right here on After Hours.
There you go.
Office Hours, sorry.
Glad to have you all here. Before we get started, go ahead and remember, as always, to go ahead and click that subscribe button. And if you like what we do, consider joining us on the channel as a member. As a reminder, if you haven't seen, Based God Kiki is on the screen right now telling you that you need to try to join as a member if you're not already. We need 9 more members to join the channel as members in order to unlock the Kiki emote, which we'd be happy to have happen here tonight on Office Hours. That would be a ton of fun. If not, we just appreciate you tuning in and being a part of it and being part of the chat. Anyway, so, with that out of the way, also a reminder, if you are still looking for Epic of the Dragonlord product, Odyssey Games still has boxes of Epic of the Dragonlord available at $85 US a box. You can go ahead and click the link in the description. It'll take you right to it. So,
it's a pretty nice deal.
Yeah, it's a pretty good price, I think, for people still trying to get product, especially with the cost of rulers as being what they are now. So, tonight's conversation is about this idea of competitive versus casual, and I kind of wanted to have this conversation after almost a little bit of an epiphany of myself that I had after reading the JPK article over on Force of Will Library, fowllibrary.com. I was reading JPK's article about the competitive state of the meta, his opinions of where we would be, and I found myself looking at the lists and then just not caring. Not necessarily not caring about JPK's opinion. I think his statements on what the meta is or what the decks look like, I think that's a pretty accurate kind of depiction of what we're looking at. But the idea of considering being super mindful of and cognizant of the competitive meta just wasn't doing anything for me. And so it brought to me this idea of the competitive versus casual mindset and how, based on where you find yourself, it's going to alter your opinion, your feelings, or how even certain things that you hear about the game impact you, or how you receive them. And so I thought that was a very cool conversation to have, and then bring this group together, people from very hyper competitive in the early days of FOW to once was super casual, now suddenly won a GP, so we can't call him super casual anymore, to Paul, who's always been more on the casual side. And so I thought I would be interested to hear your guys' opinions on the difference of what makes a competitive versus casual mindset and kind of how that can impact your even experience in the game. So anybody's open to start.
So it's entirely about goals, right? I mean, if your goal is to maximize win percentage, then that's competitive. And if your goal is to maximize fun, then that's casual. Hopefully, if Force of Will, the people that are making Force of Will are doing their job right, then the two should coalesce, and that there should be a overlap between the amount of fun you're having and trying to win. Both of those things can happen simultaneously. I think when you read JPK's article, I think that the thing that triggers for you is that right now you might struggle to have fun if you're trying to be as competitive as possible because the decks are so monogamous. They're so sorry. They're so there's
What is
only
this
one really
marriage
strong
theme? What
deck
is this
in-
marriage theme?
I don't
that
know.
we're
I don't
going
know. That's what we're
into?
going for. That's the theme of tonight. It's really hard to, and the decks are not very interesting. There's not a lot of counterplay. Highly powered formats tend to reduce creativity, which tends to be an outlet for fun for some people. And so there's a divorce there that occurs when you we're gonna do it all night, folks. We're gonna be here all night between those two goals. And so if you are trying to maximize fun, not just for yourself, but for everyone you're playing with, for your locals, if you're trying to maximize fun, that's casual. If you're trying to maximize win percentage, that's competitive.
Sure. Mike, why don't you go next?
Yeah, good call. Because I definitely think that it's like, as somebody who used to play casually and somebody who went into, like, over the years after I, was on the ARG team for a little bit, I was on with this boy up here, lovely. But
That's me.
wait, no, that way. Everything's screwed up on mine. It's fine. But
Wait a minute.
no, but one of the big things is that, like, once you start getting into competitive, it's like you find yourself enjoying the times where you're able to get to high win rates, and you enjoy the counterplay between the two different, between all these different decks that people have built to stay competitive. Even if it's the same deck, even if it's like mirror match after mirror match, you get to experience different players rather than different decks built by those players. So you kind of get like that little sense of like the upper echelons and how the group think works up there. But as you play casually, you get a little more of a sense of like a broader spectrum of people, and you're looking at it. It's like, hey, this guy's over here playing his Machina beatdown deck. Doesn't do anything against me, but it's good to watch it. It's good to have fun with it. And it's just like there has to be some sort of marriage of the two to kind of.
We already used that one.
Every single time you guys mention the word marriage, I don't get money, but I'm a marriage and family therapist, so
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure this is commissions for you.
Yeah.
But
It's off unity.
Yeah. No, but I definitely think that there's a lack of that kind of overlap right now. I definitely think that there's a bit of like when I was the GP where I got my invite, the most recent one in my memory, the most recent time I was actually had to be competitive because otherwise I'm just casual with my locals. The format was a one deck format, and you played against the same deck over and over and over and over again. I turned my brain off for half the tournament, went on autopilot after learning the combos, and just it works. And unfortunately, that's what some of these meta decks end up becoming. When a creative player will make a deck where you have to like think about your plays and kind of go through the motions, and you're like, okay, cool, I made this really sick win con. I wonder how it'll go off, and then it doesn't. So I don't know. I'm a little scrambled on how I think because I have the two brains.
Sure.
My right brain is
hold on. Bear with this setup for a second here. Mike, do you think that there should be something different, like with how Forcible currently makes their game? Do you think there should be something different? Just yes or
no? Yes.
Then what would you propose? Okay. Setup over.
Okay. Moving on to Paul. Paul.
I'm a little speechless, but I'll try.
You're all night, folks.
I've always kind of seen myself kind of forced to be a casual, just mostly because like the last 3 years that I've been playing Force of Will, I've been in school, and so most of my attention has been focused on graduate school and not traveling and stuff like that, just trying to live. But I've definitely had a desire to become more competitive. So like this, I kind of feel like I'm more on the edge. Like I want to jump into that space, so I pay attention to what's going on. So I pay attention to JPK's article because I'm like, I just want to see how the competitive scene, how competitive folks are actually viewing the game at this point. And I know JPK is one of the more talented players over in Europe. So like that really catches my attention as someone who wants to become more competitive. But at the end of the day, I'm working with Jeremy, right? And I'm playing these fun decks, to help the casual crowd kind of get into the game and feel good about it. So like, I want to learn how to deck build well. I want to learn how to like sequence and play the game well on one hand, because, I want to I want to appeal to the greatest number of people that I possibly can, which is the casual crowd. But then the other side, I do want to get better at the game and jump into these competitive circuits.
Yeah, I think for me, Brandon, you kind of touched on a little bit about maybe the reason why to not, the reason why maybe JPK's article didn't resonate. And I really do like what you said about like maximizing fun versus maximizing win percentage. And I think to me, in reading JPK's article, my first pass of reading it was from the mindset of, okay, if these are like the peak optimum decks, what's going to have the higher win percentage? Like I read it from that position of like what was the win percentage going to look like, kind of like Paul's talking about, trying to push yourself to be better and improve. And then I kind of read through it a second time and specifically more looked at the lists versus reading it. And I kind of looked at them and went, yeah, okay, I can see why these are so good. But I didn't feel driven to want to play those. Like, just like having the knowledge was helpful. But, back when I was doing competition, I would be taking those lists and going, okay, cool, I need to get my reps in with these lists. This is why, like, I felt a drive to then try to practice those lists or learn them or better than that. And I found myself just not having that drive, but not like in a bad way. It was just kind of like a, okay, these exist. And then I just slipped back into thinking about all the fun that I've been having recently playing different games or playing different decks, like playing it in a different way.
What you say is absolutely true. I mean,
right.
it speaks to what a great game Force of Will is. And I don't say like good things about Force of Will like that often, but like the fact that Force of Will is so much fun when it's fair and balanced is incredible. It is. It really is. Like Force of Will, when it's like when you go back to these formats that were fair, when you go way back before like the game got very broken, or when you find the time to play these casual games or with decks that have interesting ideas, this game really is quite great. And it's just that when they're just really bad at pushing degenerate stuff all the time, that makes things a lot less interesting.
Yeah, and so I think now, why this is an interesting conversation is I think now, especially during the off season, I would kind of, especially, I mean, like we're naturally due to COVID, we're going to be waiting to find out what happens in terms of GPs. Most of the time, first set formats have never had a competitive event in them in Force of Will's history. Like first set of a new cluster comes out, you're not playing a tournament. Like that's not happening. So there's kind of a part of me that's just truly shifted into this very casual, very just enjoying the game kind of state, and it's changed how I even read posts or how I even look at cards or how conversations I have with players or see players having like impact me. Like I'm not I found myself asking someone like what the sequence of events was to go to try to do like a Welser turn 3 flip. Like someone had mentioned that and I'm like, okay, at the competitive level, yeah, I get how you're doing that. I get why that would be really good. But then again, I was like, yeah, but that seems really boring. Like that just seems really like.
Does it remind you all of like when you first started playing Force of Will, when it was like new and it was really fun and exciting? Some might say your honeymoon period.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, even when this set was coming out, when we were doing spoiler talks for this set and looking at the cards for this set and the rulers for this set, it really did feel like those early days of like, you know what, you can come up with something like Yellow Brick Road, or you can come up with something like Odd Grow, and like you just got to have fun playing the cards. You got to play something like the 72 Cats deck that played it that won a GP with Scheherazade with like 12 cats or whatever. But like that stuff was just fun and unique and creative, and you could just play it. And so I kind of almost want to like challenge people to maybe during this time let your competitive, like still flex your competitive muscles, because that's important if you want to stay competitive, but like let yourself kind of drift, like let yourself kind of drift away and see how much more exciting it is. Like just wait till he says alimony. I don't.
Oh, he said it.
I did.
There it is.
Damn, that's it right there.
That's it. Because even looking at the cards themselves of this set or the deck ideas that people have been putting forward, or even the spoilers or even the news, I find I'm just enjoying it more than I have when I was in this truly competitive era. But it's just like changing how I'm looking at things. And I don't know, like look like an example of a card, like the differences in mindset of the shrine of the Dragonoids from this new set, right? Paul and I first looked at that card from like in our because we've been in this kind of like haze of being in a casual mindset, and we were like, oh, this is interesting. Yeah, that's a neat card. And then we look at the competitive Lilius lists, and every single one of them is just like slam 4 of these, like immediately. Like I think that's a good like it shows you the difference of mindset, but like neither of those mindsets is really negative. So, I mean, we saw it as a fun card. It also happens to be a very competitive card. But like when looking at it, we were looking at it from 2 different perspectives. So, I don't know. It goes in a lot of different ways. Lars, welcome. Or even like Ragnarok, right? From a casual perspective, I kind of wrote off Ragnarok a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. But then I have Minha and Lars sending me Ragnarok lists that are just like,
oh, you knew
no.
Lars was going to have a Ragnarok
I mean, of
list.
course he was.
You know, Min's gonna do some stupid bullshit with Ragnarok. It's
Right.
what he does.
Right. But like, but I think it speaks to how right now is a time where both of those mindsets have really good benefit to them. Rather than just being, because there have been times in Force of Will's past where like the casual cards were so terrible that like you weren't having fun because even someone playing even a slightly competitive deck was going to blow you out of the water, or where the competitive era is just so not fun, like last format where it's just brain dead. I hate this. But like now, when I'm looking at the decks that are being played both casually and competitively now, both environments seem fun, like seem engaging, and I'm kind of glad to see that. I don't know. I would be interested to hear your thoughts. And then we're also going to talk about how you can approach the casual mindset for a different kind of forcible experience with Brandon. But I'll have you guys jump into that idea.
Go ahead.
Mike, you want to go first?
No, I saw Bremont starting up. I've been reading the chat.
Oh no, I was doing that, anticipating.
No, but hang on. What was the question? Sorry, I was talking to Lars.
the idea of how now is, in my opinion, having looked at it, now is kind of a time where both the competitive and the casual mindset in Force of Will have upside. Like having both of them, there's a place for you to be able to have both of them right now in the current environment, as opposed to in the past where it's been very polarized one or the other.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that one of the biggest things about having that kind of like the divide, but the chance to kind of look at the competitive scene in a way that makes you think differently than what you initially want to do. Like, wow, that was a 10-car pileup of a bunch of words I just said. Oof. But no, but some of the biggest things that I really, really enjoy about the game, throwback here to when Ryan Miles had that idea to have like those challenge tournaments with New Frontiers or Wanderer legal cards, where there was that one where you can't play cards unless they have 2 will symbols.
Yeah, I do remember him like going to do that. Whatever happened to that?
He just stopped doing them.
Ryan Miles did. It's fine.
I mean, when I think Jeremy, like back to, I don't know, the very, very, very end of Alice Origin. I mean, we were asking people on the channel, like, give us some weird win conditions that we have to do, and like, we were playing like, I think honestly, like genuinely like really fun decks because we were trying to get to a different win condition, and that was more of a casual style format, but it kind of took you in this other creative direction and made you kind of flex in a different way than just, get your opponent's life points to 0. And I think you can do that casually. Like, I don't know of any competitive tournaments that are doing that besides.
I actually do like that idea to revisit that like casual mindset competitive tournament. But like as you mentioned, like alternate win cons, like what if like the win con for the game was your opponent has no cards in hand, you win the game? What if the end game combo is have a resonator of all colors on the field?
Wait, hold on.
Not included.
Worldwide default for the auto draw.
There we go. Now that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. Like, come on, that sounds so much fun. I would totally. Oh, now I want to.
Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, we were playing. I forget like what your list was, Jeremy, but like I was playing the Valentina list, and I had to summon all of the Gorgons before I could actually attack for game.
That's so fun.
Yeah, and
that was fun. I mean, like, I love doing stuff like that because it's like you never know what the conditions could be, and it's community involved, and that was just fun.
Yeah, and I think when I look at when we were doing that, we were taking a ruler and forcing it to do something other than what it was initially intended, and I think that's why it made it so fun. And I think going into this set of rulers, the rulers themselves are naturally designed to be able to do them in so many different ways, which I think just means like there's more fun even in the deck building of it, because you're not like locked into what this ruler has to do.
Would you say that the rulers were like groomed to be more fun?
Stop it.
I was playing with that one right there.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
Fremont, high five.
See, you're making all these puns, but it's not getting us any new members, so it's not earning me anything.
If you don't have more people subscribed after we made these puns, you're having the wrong viewers, bud.
I was going to say, why invite me to the podcast if you don't want me to rattle off puns? That's what I do.
That's fair.
Listen, if all y'all in the chat right now, if any of you watching right now are not currently subscribed, first of all, these puns do not write themselves. Consider it your ticket to the comedy show.
Yeah,
Second of all, you're putting us 9 members away from Kiki, and I think that's just very rude of you and irresponsible. And honestly, we can use a little more Kiki in our lives.
Kiki is the best man.
Do you remember all of those arboreal plant puns, Jeremy?
I do remember all of them.
A bell?
Oh, oh no!
So moving on. Yeah, puns are costing me subs. Yeah, for sure. So I do want to talk about.
Lost 2,000 subscribers. Wow.
I do want to talk about this idea of cube specifically. Brandon, you have been doing a lot of work on your cube and kind of trying to updating it and kind of making use of it. So I kind of want us to have you walk us through a little bit, for those who maybe don't know, what it means to be a cube, how you've kind of gone about assembling it, what your mindset has been as you built it, and what your experience has been in using it.
So Cube is a combination of a limited and a constructed format for Force of Will. It comes from Magic the Gathering, I think. And basically, we have 320 decently to good Force of Will cards that we have set in a list, shuffled up, and then dealt out packs of 10 4 times to each player to draft like you were opening regular packs of Force of Will, except it's just high-powered cards. We have things like the Final Battle, Misty Dragon, Arthur Pendragon in there. Very good cards that would typically be bombs in regular limited environments, but since the entire pack is bombs, you get to play what kind of feels like a semblance of fair and balanced Force of Will. You're playing things like Rachel's under Kugas and playing Celestial Wing Seraphs to get Lucifers. You're doing all of those things that you remember and like doing, but with none of the consistency and degeneracy that you tend to get out of regular Force of Will formats.
Because it's singleton, right? It's 320.
It is singleton, and also you don't get a ruler that has any relevant effect on the game. And so a lot of the more consistent decks in Force of Will's history that got their consistency from their ruler providing something ridiculous to the format go away. Plus, you don't get any like obscene combo loops. You just get the base value of the card, and so you get to play Force of Will. And there are combos, don't get me wrong. As I said, you can get Rachel and Kuga, you can get Farisha and Sigurd still. You can do these very strong things. You just can't always reliably get them, and when you do get them, you don't always draw them because they're not.
And for your,
you don't get them every time because they're singleton.
For your cube, you guys run the draft rulers from Rhea Cluster, right? The mini,
We
essentially
run
the
the
mini
draft
Rheas.
rulers from Rhea Cluster with a couple of exceptions. One, they have the energize of their color.
Sure.
Two, they don't have any of the color fixing icons that they have. And three, they have none of their text. They're just 4 mana judgment, 10/10s on their backside with energize. That's
Okay.
the only text on the ruler.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
I guess the second and the third things could be combined into one thing, but
Yeah.
they don't have any text.
There's no filtering. There's no anything else.
No,
It's
there's no
just energize.
filtering. They're energize for judgment 10/10. That is the only text that they have.
Okay.
But and that's turned out to be very good because it's nice to have a 4 mana 10/10 sometimes that stops you from calling stones, but mostly it doesn't come up in most games.
Do you think that you would?
And I
Sorry.
go ahead.
Do you think that you would ever try using the new draft ruler that's come out?
I actually don't know what the
So the new draft
is.
ruler is a on its front side. It is a 4 cost. All rulers now have energize. That's a rule, so it technically has a void energize, and then it has 3 filters on it. So technically, you can burn one of the filters and your energize to make it an energize of any color. And then on its backside, it's just a 10/10. It
Yeah,
has no other
I
ability.
think I would consider that. So we actually we were playing with it having a colorless energize for most of the time that I've played the cube. We updated it to have a colored energize actually quite recently, only because the I guess I need to back up a second and explain that in our cube we have all 10 of the perfect duels, all 10 of the shock duels from not Rhea Cluster, whatever cluster had started with Frozen Casket, whatever all the shock stones, and then all of the Vingal 3 ruler all-star counter stones,
Yeah.
along with Ruler's Memoria, Little Red the Pure Stone, and the Moon Memoria that pays 2 to tap for any color. So there's 33 stones in the cube, so your mana can be pretty good overall. And because of that, you are encouraged to usually play between 2 and 3 different colors. And we thought that having a colored energize would help not punish going second as much, but you could play with a colorless energize. That's just fine.
Sure. And so the way you guys do it is it's 320 cards. You shuffle. So say you have 4 people playing. You shuffle the cube.
Yep.
You shuffle the cube together. Everybody gets 4 packs of 10 randomly dealt.
That's right.
So only
you're
about
playing with
half
4
the cube gets used every single time.
Exactly half of the cube. So the cube plays 8 people perfectly, and if you play with 8, then you're playing with every single card. And if you play with 4, then you're playing with exactly half, which is nice because the stronger things aren't guaranteed to be in the cube, but they certainly could be if you want to hedge on combos, which is always nice. But I have probably played now between 25 and 30 instances of this cube where we've not gone a day without changing at least a couple of cards around or modifying things based on power level or finding new intricacies that we want to add to it. And it really is, and I don't just say this to try and like advertise anything. I'm not like selling anything here. It is the most fun I've ever had playing Force of Will, because as I was alluding to earlier, this game really is a lot of fun when it is fair and balanced. When you are playing, like, it's a lot of fun to play a Pharisha, discard my Sigurd to hit your thing, and then cast Sigurd from the graveyard. Like, I know that interaction probably ruined a lot of people's fun with Force of Will last format, but when it's fair, when it is just the base value of those cards doing things that are normal and good, it's actually a lot of fun. And when your opponent then goes back, untaps, final battles your board, plays Misty Dragon, and passes back, I mean, like these are just great interactions.
Yeah, and I think to speak to that, when you and I have been talking about your cube for a bit, even before then, this speaks to what I'm talking about. How I think the way to maximize the value or to maximize the fun, or just the what you get out of this game is to both simultaneously kind of have a competitive and a casual mindset simultaneously, in the sense of like you're saying, like all these good cards from Force of Will's history. There were times in Force of Will's history where the competitive era was fair and balanced, and there are times where now even looking at those competitive cards brought into a cube format makes it fun and fair and balanced and really engaging. And there have also been other times in Force of Will's history where the competitive mindset is just or the competitive era is just so atrocious, but then you can play it on the casual side and you just have this really
I
fun and
just
balanced
noticed that
comparison.
we have CCG Prime in the chat. CCG Prime, I just yesterday put in an order on TCG Player from this is not a joke. Like literally yesterday, I put in an order to CCG Prime for like I want to say 14 cards that probably look really random and ridiculous, but those are cube cards. So if you're ever looking at your order, like who the heck is ordering these 16 just random ass cards from Force of Will history? That was me, and it's for the cube. So thank you very much for supplying those CCG Prime.
Good
So
old Dan Rowland doing his job.
Dan Rowland putting in
Yeah.
work. So I think to go. He said he mailed it this morning. Look at you. So to go into like further ways that these mindsets can kind of impact. I look at specifically. I kind of want to talk about like spoiler season. I want to talk about card evaluation, and then I want to talk about communities, like within communities. So spoiler season, when you have these two mindsets, competitive versus casual, I find that the casual mindset makes spoiler season more exciting. And I would be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this too, because on the competitive mindset, a spoiler comes out and it's very quick. Like, cards trash, cards competitive. Like, like just quickly move it. Whereas if you're in the casual mindset, you go like, oh, that's pretty fun. You could do X, Y, and Z with this card. Like, it maybe not be great, but it's fun to do. Like, it's a cool engagement. And so I would be interested to see, do you guys agree with that?
Did you
Disagree
say
with that?
engagement?
Freaking. Anyway, I'd be interested to hear if you guys agree with that, disagree with that, or maybe what you think. Which one of those mindsets really is kind of the better one to have during spoiler season.
I mean, to be honest, when spoiler season starts up, one of the biggest things that you should be doing is looking for interactions that nobody has thought of yet. Like, for instance, right now I'm tossing together a Magna deck for my locals, which is focused entirely on slamming an isolated Demon of Revenge on the board, playing Genesis, and castling it into a 4-drop Stranger on turn 2. Because that just sounds fun to me. And that sounds stupid. And I really, really love fun, stupid decks. Because I'm pairing it up with that. I'm probably going to toss Mikage Rhea, part of True Power, and a Griffin into it to get a Griffin, castling the Griffin out into a 6-drop Stranger. And, it's just like, the fact that castling is a sword art is something that people just seem to overlook. And I feel like it's
sword art.
Cast.
I didn't know that.
Mr. Competitive Man himself over here.
Bremont's been working on his cube. Give him a break.
What's the blue sword art ruler? Freya? Oh, and Machina, I guess.
Freya?
No, what's your
Faria.
name?
Faria.
Faria, thank you.
And also now Magna, because Genesis produces any color for sword arts.
There you go.
So you get 0 mana castlings to put your isolated Demon of Revenge back into the deck, drop out, like, I don't know, an Ushua, ping them for 17.
So,
I'm like trying to think about the old Machina decks that were like legal in Vegas, Jeremy. Like, was I missing playing Castling? Was like that a thing?
It wasn't out yet.
No,
it wasn't
actually,
out yet. That was AO3.
Castling was out
okay.
in AO3.
Castling was AO3.
For some reason, because there were no sword art water jailers.
I do want to speak to Brandon. Brandon, you and I did many a spoiler conversation coverage when we were doing Teacher's Lounge back when we were doing competitive stuff. So to your mindset of having the competitive mindset when looking at spoilers, in your mind, what is some of the advantage or disadvantage that kind of comes with having that mindset during that season?
Well, okay, so the biggest disadvantage is disappointment. If you don't care about competitive, there's not a whole lot to be upset about. Like, what's the worst that could happen? You don't get anything fun to play with, which is bad, but not like as bad as like, oh, the game's ruined. So it takes a lot of stress off of spoiler season for sure, and that I guess that's nice. The advantage is it's another lens to look at things. It's an ability to stretch those muscles. It's a lot of fun to think about things in this what maximizes the win percentage situation to really draw these connective lines. Like, could Machina have played Castling? Would that have been good? Like those are interesting questions to think about, and spoiler season just gives you a lot of those questions to ponder over. And I think that's a lot of fun. Can I just interrupt really quick to speak
Sure.
to our chat seems to be talking about rulers in the cube, and I just want to talk
Yeah,
about that for
go
a
for it.
second because it is an interesting thought. So I would challenge anyone who wants this idea, and it is a good idea. Actually, Jeremy and I talked about this when I first started mentioning the cube to Jeremy. He said, "Are you drafting rulers, or is there a way to put rulers in the cube?" And I think that that's a very natural thing to come to because you look at Force of Will, especially compared to Magic, and one of the cool things that we get are these rulers that are consistent every game that sort of in some way help define your color because of the energize that they get or some abilities or some cards that talk about the ruler. And so it might be natural to think that there should be some way to incorporate rulers into the cube. And yet I'm saying that we just have generic rulers that have energized and a judge for 4 and 10. And why is that? And the answer to that question can kind of be derived backwards if you ask yourself, what rulers are we adding? What would you consider adding to the cube as a draftable ruler? And keep in mind that it has to fit into 2 constraints. One, it can't be too strong because rulers are consistent every game. Even something as weak as Sylvia Gil Parias, the first Sylvia that corrects redstones into green, judges for 4, hits something for 10, and is a 10/10 swiftness on her backside, would be nominally stronger than the rulers that we have right now that you'd have consistent access to every single game. So something like that is probably too strong. Is there something weaker than that that you could put in, and then weak enough that we could find enough of them to put in that it would be a reasonable chance that everyone could have access
You're
to
looking
one?
at you're looking at Vingolfs. You're looking at Vingolfs.
Oh, we considered the dragon rulers as the rulers that you could start with. We actually can, because I actually happen to have just an obscene number of them because they were like you got the Uber
Uber
ones
runs,
for
yeah.
willpower rewards. And I got like 3 of those and then like 3 Vingol. So I like actually have just like a randomly huge amount of those dragon rulers. We thought about doing that, but even that, what they do is they cause you to draft a specific way. Like the green ruler says resonance, wind, stone, target resonator you control can tap for any color. Well, that really inspires you to draft 1-drops with the green ruler, which isn't really something that wind has really ever encouraged before. Like we've got Tama in the cube, but and we have Sacred Elf, which is kind of redundant to do that too. But like otherwise, they force their colors into a specific desire that we'd prefer them to be absent of. Like we'd like the fire cards in our cube, for example. We have a bunch of aggro stuff, but we also have eruption. We also have a lot of the board clear type stuff. We have the one that does 5 or destroys something that's been damaged, demon flame. And so like red can go in a controlling direction, and if you have the red dragon as the ruler, then you really stop having that be something that you want to do. We don't want you to have consistent access to a ruler that demands a specific theme. And because there is, okay, I'm sorry, man, I'm rambling here, but this is an interesting question, and I think that it's an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, I don't think that there is a good ruler to add. I don't think that you can really think of one that's interesting to add. And I think that in general, because of the low number of interesting ones, even if you just took the Vingolf rulers, it's just more consistent to leave them out. And that's kind of the conclusion we came to.
Everybody plays Alice. OG Alice 1. That's it.
I love
That's the only ruler.
Everyone has to play Ragnarok. There you go.
Gross.
Well,
Hard pass.
I'll dip in my toes a little bit here because we actually have a cube that one of the guys in my locals keeps on him all the time. So whenever we're just like, we're never feeling new frontiers right now. If you guys just want to draft cube, and we're like, yeah, okay, sure, draft cube, whatever, it's fine. He actually does have about 40 to 50 to 60 rulers that we pick from in those. It's
Ugh,
the way that we
gross.
the way that we do it is that we just make packs of however many players we have. If it's a 4-player game, each of us makes a pack of 4 rulers. Look at those, pass those around, and see what happens after that. It gets imbalanced from time to time because it just added Imul into it. An Imul in a 4-player game with anything that taps to do anything.
Why would you
is
do
disgusting.
that?
Imul's also just a 3/3 lifelink that gets really big for 2 and imperishable.
Yeah.
Like even that would be too ridiculous for the cube.
Like our buddy ended up drafting her, and his pack 1 pick one was Death Scythe because he's like, I can't let anyone have this. So he got the Death Scythe for his imperishable J ruler. So I see where it comes from, but at the same time, you kind of like, especially if you're playing a 4-player game with this kind of thing, our cube also isn't like as bomb heavy as yours sounds like it is. Most of our stuff is, you know, kind of forgettable commons and uncommons splashed together with some super rare and rare bombs. Like there's a
So,
big balance of, you know,
so
colors.
as I kind of mentioned, we've curated this cube a lot. Like we've taken out a lot of things that like you might not necessarily think we'd take out. And we have some things in there that you might not think like this is like a legendary bomb or something like last drop, which is like green colorless,
That
gain a
card's
thousand.
fantastic in draft.
So
Like,
it is like, but it's not like a card that anyone remembers, but it's just really good in cube. And then we've like added some archetype support for like different things that have like slight what am I going for? Like slight suggestions to archetypes that some
yeah.
super rares have. We've added the support to that you can find, and so it's a good hodgepodge. I'll post my list. As I mentioned, I'm getting cards from CCG Prime here in a couple of days here, and so when I get that, I will post my cube list. I just didn't want to post it not complete. You know what I mean?
Sure. I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
playing
eventually
it. I'm looking forward to doing it.
I
Maybe
did
we'll do
like the
some
idea
cube
that
streams.
I did like the idea that Matt Seymour had of having like, you know, like a Facebook group, maybe like a Discord too, to kind of keep track of people's cubes, see what people are playing.
Let me just go to the Ruler School Discord and add a cube room.
I'm gonna fly out
I'll
to
do-
see you here, Jeremy, and we can do cube games here together.
Heck yeah, man, for sure. But I do kind of we've answered the questions about the cube. I do kind of want to go back to what we talked about before in terms of looking at. We were talking about spoilers.
What happened, Jeremy? You getting cold feet? You're getting cold feet about this whole
I'm
topic?
gonna kick you out. I'm going to kick you out. I love the cube. Yeah, see, I didn't even do that. Mike kicked himself. But
I don't think the timing could have been better.
yeah, it could have been better for Mike's internet
Thanks,
to crash.
Discord.
Mike Delope.
So I do want to get Paul's opinion on, you know, when looking at spoilers, probably from the more casual mindset, and how that has kind of had an impact, or how that's kind of influenced the way he looks at cards as they're coming out.
Sure. I mean, the way that I've really started putting on looking at spoilers is leaning on folks like you and the rest of the community for the competitive elements, and then just really seeing like, does this look like a fun card to me, either in draft or in limited or just in cluster itself.
Sure.
And so I kind of like, as a casual person, when I play the game, I kind of look at it in different contexts, and then I just assume that like, if a card is really freaking broken, it's going to be obvious. But like something like Suya, right? Like Suya was something that we were like on the fence about, because we were like, we don't want to play this turn one, but we want to play it later. And then like JPK publishes this article, and it's just like 4 Suyas, and we're just going to flood the field and wipe your board and all this other stuff. So there's a competitive use for it now, but it was just that mindset of like, this looks like a fun card. I just don't know where it fits yet. But then like seeing like how people deal with it is something that I do as a casual person, just to see like how people get creative with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is, I mean, it's easier for me to use the brain power of the community than for me to sit down and like, I don't know, just pontificate and try and figure out if this card is good or not.
Yeah, for sure.
But in general, I think the thing that I really enjoy about this last set is that there's not really a card that is like completely useless. I mean, we even got a reprint of a card that was used for like the Grim Sun's ruler for, I forget his name because I never played him. It's
Million's Weapon.
Millium, yeah, like so Millium 2 got this like really interesting card that put +1/+1 counters and stuff, but it was never good because Millium 2 sucked. But in this set, in this like sealed environment, in this drafting environment, it was actually really strong. Especially if you know, happen to draft it and like all the stuff you need for an oboe list. Just casually, you know, just to get everything you need.
Just casually get it handed to you in a draft, and then you question
or
reality.
In like formats like Pauper, right? Like we were talking about Pauper in the chat, which I really appreciate, because I think Pauper is a cool format, but like those are cards that would never see the light of day because they're crap commons. But in that format, they're actually pretty decent.
Yeah.
So I mean, like it's all about context for me, casually speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So you get more of like a breadth, I guess.
For sure. And I think the other thing too is, you know, to kind of transition from even looking at spoilers to even your engagement. You bring up, I know I said it again, don't worry about it. Your engagement in the community when you have a competitive versus a casual mindset. We in the course of tonight, when talking about having the casual mindset, we all talked about a little bit of the competitive mindset. You know, Mike talked about how when you hit into the competitive world, you start to kind of get into the upper echelons of meeting the same people and getting those relationships built. But like that's a small snippet of what the community actually is. But in the course of tonight, we've talked about the different podcasts we've done. We talked about playing Cube. We've talked about playing Pauper. We've talked about playing Sealed. You know, all these other things. When you have like your approach to the community of a game is different when you have a competitive mindset versus a casual mindset. Like, you know, it's going to change. And I think that the Force of Will community now versus what the Force of Will community was at its beginning has become a lot more solidified in terms of how you're going to get the most out of the community. I think when Force of Will first started and we were hitting 300 people at competitive events, like the competitive mindset was how you got involved in this community. Like those were the people who were most prominently talking. Those were the people who were making posts, engaging in discussion, even willing to talk to other players. Like it was get competitive or go in the sense of like finding a place within the community. And I think now, jeez Louise, Mike. And I think now,
I said power.
I think now the casual mindset, I think, does go farther. Not that there isn't a place for the competitive mindset, because I think that people are making posts. I think especially in like the Force of Will Reddit, the Force of Will Discord, and the like those communities, I think you're seeing a lot. And on Foul Library, I mean, like to Dennis's credit, like Dennis has built that website to be very competitively driven, and it's a good spot. So I think there are still places for those people, but you go farther, and I think you get more out of it if you have the casual mindset, just in terms of how you can get connected to people in the different communities. I don't know. Would you guys agree, disagree? I mean, Brianna, you've kind of been out of the community for a bit, but kind of fringe. But I would be interested to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, well, Force of Will is great in that you really can come and take out of it whatever you want. If you really want to go and be hyper competitive about it, I guarantee you'll find people that want to do that. Yeah, I see people on Untapped playing competitive games all the time. It definitely is out there. I'm sure GPs will be back again someday. Game's definitely not dead. And when that happens, I'm sure I'll be back to play a lot more competitively, but then you can really flex that. And until then, I think that, as we said, this game will also offer you a lot of fun if you don't want to play that way. If you want to just play good, fair, fun, mechanical Force of Will, that's out there too. There's a lot of people that want to talk about that. A lot of people on the Facebook page that want to talk about that. And get out of it exactly whatever on earth you want to put into it, you know?
Mike?
I'll reiterate what Brand said. Like, Force of Will is not the same game that you're going to get out of Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon. You're not going to go to a store, somebody's got a predetermined community, and you're just kind of like a wallflower on this already pre-established community. You're not just kind of jumping into something bigger than you. Force of Will is only as big as the players that play it and the players that tote how good it can be. And hearing someone like Bremont, who obviously is adamant about how much he loves the game and how much he wants the game to improve as a whole, and who puts his own opinions out there so that people know, hey, Force of Will is great. It can do this. It can do this. It could be better. But for what it's worth, everything contained right now is a good block to step on. And I think the exact same thing. We have so many fan-made formats. All of our non-New Frontiers formats are fan-made right now, which is insane to think about, because every other game that has a big following has, you know, some sort of eternal support. And we don't really get that, but at the same time, it's like we make it ourselves.
Right.
We have EU Wanderer, which is for, you know, really hyper-competitive players who want to use all the most powerful cards in this game's history. We have Conqueror for people that want to play a little bit of a slower game with their Eternal stuff. We have Epic Storage for people that want to experiment with different rulers in a singleton format. People who just like longer, drawn-out, or more open, friendly, like 4-player games. Obviously, we've got Pauper for using those cards. We've got Cubes, we got Draft, we got Sealed, we got just all these different there's so much that people can take advantage of, and there's so many different permutations to the formula. Like I have half a mind to restart Ryan's old challenge tournaments and see if I can, annoy Cal enough to let me put it into the OLS.
Yeah,
Because I
I'll
would be
host
so
it.
down.
I'll host
I
it.
would be
I'll host
so
it
down
here.
for like a tavern brawl type, like between the OLS rounds, just having like
I'll
just
host it. I'll host it on
You'll host
Force of
it?
Will.
It's honestly sinful of us to not talk about getting out of Forceful what you want to put into it without talking about Cal.
Yeah,
Like, quick
for
shout
sure.
out to
Yeah,
Cal and his
absolutely. The
OLS. Like,
OLS.
huge shout out to Cal, first
Yeah,
of all.
Yeah.
that guy's just does so much work for this community. Goodness gracious.
I love Cal with every fiber of my being, and if anybody was to say anything negative about him, I would physically fight them.
So I think, the title of this event, the title of tonight's podcast was competitive or casual, as if like, and I think the takeaway that I kind of want to really hit home tonight is that like almost that meme of like, why not both? Because both is good. Because in every aspect of this game, having both will benefit you. There are certain areas where or certain times where obviously one is preferred over to the other, but I think flexibility and the ability and the willingness to try either or switch your brain to being either or based on the situation is again how you maximize Force of Will. Because at the end of the day, sure, this is a competitive card game. At the end of the day, this is a hobby. Like, this is an absolute hobby. So going, the way you get the most out of a hobby is to fully invest yourself in it. And in Force of Will, that means having both mindsets and being willing to have both mindsets. I think that shoot, we're back on topic, more wedding puns. Sorry. But I also think, I think some good illustrations of that have been the people that we've lost out of Force of Will, like people who have left the game, that I can speak to who didn't have that flexibility where it was all one thing, particularly almost the toxicity of all competitive mindset without being willing to have the flexibility of casual mindset. Like,
without naming names.
That creates that, like, to be honest, the Force of Will, if you're all in on one particular mindset, games fluctuate, and so it's not always going to be rewarding to have that mindset all the time. And so if all you're looking for is to try to get maximum reward out of that one mindset, you are going to get burned out and leave. It's what's happened. And so I think be willing to be both casual and competitive, because they're both great.
I was gonna say this.
Well, we'll quote Jeremy here.
Hold on, Mike, stop talking. I want Paul to talk. Paul, go.
Thanks. My husband needs to be quiet.
Shush.
I was just gonna say, I think the best, when I think back to all the other card games I've played, if people have been hyper focused on competitive, the game feels like crap. It feels toxic. It just feels just terrible. And if it's just casual, it doesn't feel fulfilling, right? So I think the best card game players that I've ever experienced are people who can embrace the casual and enjoy the game for what it is, and then take that creativity and that mindset into the competitive. So there's this ability to think creatively about the meta that you don't get if you're just focused on trying to win. I don't know if that's fair. I'm not someone who's won a GP, so I don't know if that's fair enough, but I think that casual mindset going into competitive play is important.
I will say that Mike has his best performance at a GP was one where he threw all creativity out the window and died to himself to play the most brain dead competitive deck of all time. But that has not stopped Mike Rance from coming to every other GP with a very fun deck and walking away having a good time. So,
yeah, you gotta pick your battles sometimes, man.
Yeah.
I'm looking in the chat here, just trying to see some other people. David Hansen, welcome. Don't worry if you were late; you'll be able to watch the stream later. Jesse, I believe Jesse is the one who is doing the
dragon-
Sylvia Dragon event.
Yeah.
Talking about if he gets enough event traffic, he'll do a 1K popper next year. That'll be dope.
It's White Phoenix, right? Is the name?
No,
White Creed?
White Phoenix is the Italian group.
Mm.
Jesse is in the United States. It's doing he's doing a Dragon Rulers only tournament.
Oh, that's cool.
Flashbacks to Draco Stack.
And the first place first place winner wins a 3D double-sided Sylvia ruler. If I remember correctly, because Jesse
Pretty
does
cool.
Jesse does the 3D cards, so those are pretty dope. Force of Crafts. I tried
Force of
all dragons,
Crafts.
but not enough people wanted to do Wanderer, so just dragon format.
Does
yeah,
Blazer count as a dragon? Quick rules question.
If you fight for it hard enough, does Millium count?
Oh, that's a good question too.
Double million.
Oh, dang it! It's been moved to just New Frontiers. Dang, drat. Either way, would have been cool.
Trip.
So still cool, but I think a link for the event. Jesse, go ahead and post a link to the event in the chat here. I do want to to kind of tag it here at the end. Is like it's been a while since we've had any kind of like big community negativity swings, and that's not what tonight was about. That's not why I wanted to have this conversation or anything. It really was just based on that article from JPK, which I think was a well-written article. But it got me thinking about this, and that's what Office Hours is. Like, we have a thought and we talk about it. Like, that's what it's
Damn,
about.
Found needs a new villain, I guess.
So
There must always be a Lich King.
There must always be a
Unban the Alex.
so that's one thing to also bring up here as we come to the time. If there's a topic or something that you find in the Forceville community that you would like to have us talk about on Office Hours, you can leave a comment here on this video or join the Ruler School Discord. There's a link to that down below. We'd love to hear those, because ultimately that's what this is. This is just supposed to be a conversation with us and with you about what's going on in Forceville world and what's kind of catching our interest. If this is, as we come to a close, if this is something you like, consider subscribing or supporting if you want to help us continue to grow or improve, or be able to even maybe host our own events someday here on Ruler School, maybe even the second Force of Will Festival. Consider clicking that join button right down below the video. It is you can also go to youtube.com/dm073/join. That's a way for you to be able to join the channel as a member. Gets you
can join us in holy matrimony.
Don't
I had to do one
you
more.
interrupted my spiel. You get access to the emotes, you get access to the name badges, you get special rules in our Discord, and you even get to get like special perks from getting connected to the members of the staff here at Ruler School. So consider that. As a reminder, if it's been on screen all night, we have 9 more members to go until we get that Kiki emote unlocked. So consider supporting us that way. This Wednesday, we will be doing we'll be doing Foul Wednesday again, the live stream at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to be doing Lilius this week, so I hope you join us for that as we look at everyone's potential new favorite Dragonoid ruler. I don't think we can ever beat Sylvia for Dragonoid love, but we'll see what we can do. And then we'll move on to deck profiles later this week, and then back next week for another Office Hours. So, as always, this has been myself. Hope you have really enjoyed it. This has been Demo73, and I have been joined by Mike Rance.
Bye, everyone.
Paul Reisman.
Paul Rance.
Paul Rance.
Okay. Don't forget.
Okay. And Brandon Franklin.
Thank you, honey.
I'm just really glad that Force of Will could bring us together today. Force of Will, that blessed arrangement, that dream within a dream. True Force of Will. Force of Will follow you forever.
I'm just glad this turned into a couples group. It's great.
Yeah, it's been great. So until next
Cold
time,
Rumble.
That was
this is all of
Princess
us.
Bride, in case no one gets the rep. That was a little obscure, but it's there.
That was good. That
And
was
you
good.
Joey, the Princess Bride.
So until next time, this is all of us saying class dismissed. Have a good night, everybody.
Da, 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 da.